Well, hello everyone. This is Sevilla I Love, and here we are on this channel getting back to living and loving life again after a major life altering loss, such as being widowed. Now, I am a therapist and a coach and a consultant, and here on this channel, I'm helping people to be able to reclaim their life and be able to understand a little bit more about themselves and about the people that they are loving. There's many people on this channel that are dating widowers and widows, and lots of widows and widowers themselves trying to navigate their own new life. So let's get into this tonight. Many people over the holidays really saw a huge change in the person that they're trying to love that's been widowed. And a lot of the widows themselves have also been questioning about whether or not they're actually ready to be engaging in a new relationship with someone. The holidays were so hard for so many people. Now we're coming off the end of a pandemic. There's been so much change. A lot of people have lost a spouse during that time period. Okay, either just before or just after. Huge transitions for everyone. And then you throw in the loss of your life mate on top of it. And so there's been a lot of complicated, confusing feelings for people. And so I want to address those that have been widowed tonight. And if you're dating a widow or a widower, I want you to pay attention to the things I'm going to share with those who have been widowed so you can maybe understand them a little bit more and be able to know what it is that they might be going through that perhaps they can't verbalize to you and maybe even to themselves as well. So, as a grief and loss specialist, what I find with widows, and of course, for those of you who are new to the channel, I also am a widow myself, is that over the holidays they may have withdrawn quite a bit. You maybe were dating someone, and you were widowed within the last. Who knows, however long ago you were widowed, but you're starting to date again, and you found somebody that you really like. You are enjoying this person. They look good, they smell good, they're funny. When you're with them, the grief kind of seems to take a break for a while. It's like you can step out of the reality of being the grieving widower and start to get a taste for what that feels like to be happy again for just a little while. But then when you go back home, or you go back with your in-laws or your friends and family who were part of that structure of the relationship that you were in when you were Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, it all comes back to you, and then the guilt hits you. Should you even be dating again? If you still love your late spouse so much, if you're still crying over them, if you still pine for them, do you have a right to be engaging with someone else in a romantic way? If you know in your mind, I can never love like that again, never, are you doing the wrong thing by engaging with a new person who also has real feelings and needs and may be really into you and enjoying you too and hoping for something more with you or something deeper or something longer lasting? Well, what I want to say to you about that is, if you believe you will never love like that again, here's the truth. You won't. You will never love like that ever again. You are right. Because there's only one love like that. The love between two people is completely unique. It is an identity that the two of you had and shared together. It's like the marriage was almost like a third entity between you. When people get divorced, or they say we lost the relationship, or we're working on a relationship. Or there's always this third entity thing. You had the third entity. Now, what I want to say is that's always going to exist. That is not going anywhere, because that which bound you together was love. And love is an energy. It is something that cannot be destroyed because energy can't be destroyed. So what I want to propose to you is, where this may be true, here's the good news. You wouldn't want to love like that again because it belonged to you and him or her. The further good news is you can love again, but not like that. No, no. You're going to love differently. And this is what, as a widow or widower, you need to get wrapped around if you really would like to try to be happy again and are struggling to feel like you can or should, or you're wrestling with that guilt, is because you're not trying to replace that person. You can't. You're not trying to replace the love because you cannot. All you can do is start from this point on, from what has happened prior to this moment, or to the moment that your spouse left this earth, left their earthly body. You had, up until that time, fulfilled all of your duties to them. Whether you were a fabulous wife or husband, or whether you were not, you were there, or life partner, or a boyfriend or a girlfriend in a long-term relationship. You were there for them. You fulfilled your duties to the best of your ability, no matter how flawed you may have been. You loved them. And they were the love of your life. If you had a pretty good relationship, they were the love of your life. But that life, my widowed friends, is over in that way, in the context in which it existed. It no longer exists. The connection, the love still exists. But the life that you had with them in a physical form is no longer. And that means if that life ended, from here on out is a new life, even though you didn't ask for it, you didn't want it, you didn't plan on it. Here you are. Here you are, my friends. And this right here, from here on out, is all you have control over. How you respond to this new life you didn't ask for. And in this new life, if you want it, can be a new love, a new possibility in your world. But the only way to make it truly reality is to slowly move into beginning to own this new life. Now, what you may find difficult is if you're out with a new person and people start to maybe see you as a couple, or you go into a restaurant and they say, "Oh, would you like, would your wife like to take a seat at, the table by the window?" And you're like, she's not my wife, and you have this feeling that comes up in your throat. You're like, "Oh my gosh." And all of a sudden you feel like you're cheating. It's okay that you have those feelings because you have to transition your identity. You've been with this person for, 20, 30, 40 years, for 2 years, for 6 months, however long it is, you had an identity as the Mr. or Mrs. or the partner of that person. And that's how everybody knew you. And that is how you knew yourself. Do you see? And so in order to recreate your identity, you have to do it just a little bit at a time, which means allowing yourself, when you're with your new love interest, allowing yourself to lean into it. And leaning into it looks like being present with the joy that comes up. And if you have a joyful moment and the guilt kicks in, right? The guilt kicks in, so, "Oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way." You've got to allow that too. And here's why. Because if you push against it and you resist the fact that it's popping up for you, then it's going to press back on you. That which we resist persists. It's that law of cause and effect, equal and opposite reactions. And so if you're pushing back on it, it's going to push back on you. So allow it. But this is the trick, don't lean into the guilt. You have a choice here, okay? You didn't choose to lose your spouse, but you can choose now how you're going to respond to this piece, to lean into the guilt or that I should still be suffering, because this is another option. You could lean into the joy. If you choose to lean into the suffering, and the suffering is wishing things were different than they are. It's okay that you do that. Just know that it will probably bring suffering with it, because wishing things were different than they are, is trying to control for something that cannot be controlled, something that is outside of our realm of possibility of influencing. And since you can't bring your spouse back, even though on New Year's you would have loved to have been kissing your wife or your husband, and instead maybe you were kissing your new boyfriend or girlfriend and it felt strange for you, but it also at the same time thrilling, and then you had all those complicated feelings about it, maybe. This is for those people who are struggling a little bit more with this. Then at that moment, you could take a time to say, well, you know what? I recognize I felt this way. You become the observer of the feeling, but I also recognize that I felt joy. Now, let's take another thought on this. If you're feeling bad about having the thought that you wish this boyfriend or girlfriend was actually your wife or husband, and then you feel like a dirty frog about that, I want you to be gentle with yourself, number one. And number two, I want to encourage you to maybe consider changing the narrative about that, okay? Because this isn't about your boyfriend or girlfriend. This is about wishing your life mate hadn't died. It has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with the grief and the leaning into what was. It's okay that you still wish they were alive. It doesn't mean that you don't wish that this boyfriend or girlfriend were not with you. But the feeling that comes up for that is that the boyfriend or girlfriend is a reminder. They're a reminder that your partner's, your life mate, is gone. And you may even feel some anger about it towards them, irrational anger. And not everybody feels this way. Now, if you're dating somebody, don't feel like this is how your widow is feeling, because this is just a possibility for some people. Okay, so just take these with a grain of salt. And same thing for you widowers, that this may not be how you feel. But if it is reflective of emotions that have come up in you, feeling angry that this boyfriend or girlfriend is there, maybe you have the desire to kind of push them away sometimes, know that that's not about them. Okay? Again, it's about your grief. And you need to be able to make that separation and change the language about it. Rather than saying, I really wish it was my wife or husband here instead of my boyfriend or girlfriend, it's okay to say instead, I wish my wife or my husband were still alive. They would have enjoyed this moment. It's okay to have that feeling. And I also want to say to you, you don't need to tell your date everything that's going on in your mind and in your heart. Some things are meant for your closest friends and your therapist. And by the way, I do see private clients for consultation and coaching if you're interested in that. And you can see that in a link above and also in the description of this video. Your individual situation may be quite different and can use some personal attention. I'd be happy to help you with that. But if you're able to make this shift in that language of how you talk about it, that's going to help you be able to take some new ownership of this life that you're in now, and to be able to release some of the extra added guilt that you have, thinking, I must be a dirty rat for feeling that way of this beautiful woman or this great guy in front of me, and all I'm feeling is I wish my late husband or wife were here. And so if you can change that narrative, it's going to allow you now to be able to lean in more fully into the moment with this new person and be able to release some of the guilt, because you've separated the person that you are enjoying time with from your late spouse. Now, another thing I want to encourage you to do is when you talk about your late spouse, if you're using the present language, when you say my wife, my husband, when you're dating someone new, the message that you're sending them is, I'm not available. Now, you may not mean it that way, or maybe you're not sure how available you really are, and that's another reason why you use the language. You're trying to let the other person know, I'm not fully ready yet, don't have too high of an expectation on me. But it also may be a habit because you've been saying it for 20 years. My wife, my husband. And that's how you identify. Again, this is another piece of language that you may consider changing if you truly are wanting to engage with a new person romantically. And that new language may look like my late wife or my late husband, or you might use their name, Veronica, you know. And that might help be able to create a different narrative with the person that's in front of you. So you're letting them know that you're open, or at least that you're engaged with them and being respectful of their feelings, that they're trying to spend time with a guy or a girl, and you're giving these messages that says I'm not available to you. If you're not available, if you're truly not sure if you're ready, that's okay to say. But what I want to challenge you around the readiness piece is some people feel like if they still love their late spouse, then they can't possibly be ready. Or if they're still grieving in some way, they can't possibly be ready. But here's the reality is you're always going to grieve the loss. It's going to change over time. Now, if you're really deep into the acute phase of grief, it may be wise to keep time to yourself for a while until you're starting to feel ready. Usually when people feel like, okay, I might be ready, is usually an indicator that they probably are, but you've got to do it with a high level of consciousness about yourself and your process. And you have to be able to start separating the two, meaning the life that you had before and the life that you have now. You have to be able to move in and start owning this life. And owning it means using the right language that enables you to be empowered in it, to release yourself from unnecessary guilt. And I would even go as far to say any guilt that you're having over it is not going to serve anyone. It doesn't help to feel guilty because your guilt isn't going to bring them back. And the guilt isn't going to bring this new person closer. Now, if you found yourself retreating, okay, and you go back into your little hidey hole, and you say, okay, I can't do it. I can't be with anybody. I'm too messed up. I'm too damaged. I'm too broken. I'm just going to hurt everybody if I'm, putting myself out there. Because what's happened is this wave of grief has hit you, and probably hit you hard over the holidays or over whatever anniversary you may have been encountering when you're watching this video. It could have been a birthday or, a wedding anniversary or any special occasion. Special things that the kids are doing, and the late spouse is missing out on, that kind of thing. That's what could throw you back into another wave. So if grief comes in waves, what happens is you've gotten tackled. You haven't gone back. You haven't gone backwards because you can't unlearn what you've learned. But what happens is you do get tumbled, okay? You get tumbled in place, and it feels like maybe the grief was as strong as it was right after they died. It's okay to take some time to yourself. It's important that you communicate that to the people around you, friends and family, but particularly to somebody you may be becoming romantically involved with. You need to have somebody that's going to be understanding about your circumstances, but you also have to understand your romantic partner's circumstances as well. They may have been coming out of a divorce or other difficulties, and they too may be trying to start their lives over as well. And so although their situation is different, the grief is very different. It's still their journey. It's still something that they have to rebuild their identity from if they're coming out of difficult times. And so you might be able to reach each other on that platform. We're both rebuilding our lives. We both come from difficult backgrounds. How can we connect and support each other in this, in the difficulties? How can we find common ground? And it's also important that the person that you're dating can allow you and understand that you're always going to love them. That's a really important piece for you to be able to be well with a new relationship, is that they understand you're always going to love the person. And you have to understand that too, so you can then allow yourself to love again. Not love like that, Don't expect it to be like your late relationship. Even if this new partner has similarities, because you're going to ask yourself, am I trying to fill a hole in my life with this new person? Well, it's possible. Sometimes widows or widowers do use people because they're unconscious in their behavior. They're unconscious of how they're feeling, and they're unconscious of how the other person's feeling. And it's not fair to anyone when that happens. And so this is one of the reasons why I make these videos, is to try to help raise people's awareness of themselves and their own process and their own pain, and also to be able to help people free themselves from the sticky mud of grief that disables us from being able to fully enjoy this life again. Because you're still here. You get to still love your late spouse. And you get to move forward. And, it's not, and this is the other thing, people fear, like, if I stop being in pain, if I stop have this deep, deep grief, then that means I'm moving away from them. What I want to propose to you is that you're not moving away, because that relationship, when they died, it's forever frozen in time. It's forever frozen in time. In all of its perfection, all of its imperfection. And then it came to a close. And when it came to a close, you fulfilled your duties. You loved, you had proven your love in all the years you were with them, even if you weren't perfect in doing it. And now that obligation, joyful, however it was, has been released by the person leaving their life. Now, if you don't want to do this again, that's fine. This isn't who this video is for. But if you do, know that from here on out, your obligation now is to continue living. Continue finding ways to feel joy again, because your lack of joy, or your inability to lean into the happy times or to new love or to whatever else that might bring you happiness, is not a testament of your love to them. It's not. Your testament of love was the things you did in life, or how you honor them now. But you don't honor them by withholding yourself from the life you're still left here living. My friends, you get to keep being alive. And as you may choose to lean into this, allow yourself to take a break from the grief. The more often you do that, the more often you lean into the joy, the more that's going to become your new reality. If you need to keep holding on to the pain, by all means, this is your prerogative and your choice, and you may do so, of course. But what you might find is when you go back and you retreat into the hole and say, no, 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 I'm just going to let everybody go so I don't hurt anyone. What might happen is you peek back out and you go, that really was nice. It really is pretty over there. It really did feel good. It's very dark here. It's very lonely. And it hurts so much to be here. And it's not bringing them back. It's not bringing them back. And after this retreat, and you come back out again and enjoy the world again for a little while, you may start to realize that you can give yourself permission to love again. You can give yourself permission to live again. It's okay. If you ask yourself, would your spouse be angry with you if you were doing this. Some people had permission from them before they died, that opportunity. Let me ask you this question. I'm going to leave you with this. If you love someone, what do you want for them? You want them to be happy. Yes? If you love someone, what do you wish for them? Joy, good times. You wish for ease of life. What you don't wish for? You don't wish for them to hurt. You don't wish to punish them. You don't wish to withhold from them. You don't wish any harm upon them. Now, if I'm generally correct, ask yourself, did your spouse love you? And if your answer is yes, would they want these good things for you? And I'm going to let you answer that question. What does it look like to love someone? Now your job is to love yourself as well. And to love this new life that you're moving into, that you may not have asked for. But this is the life that you have now. What will you choose? Good night.